secrets to the future. That's the Fenton Perspective every Monday evening right here from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time, only on Revolution Radio. Oh, and you don't need to expect us. We're already here.
Hi, everybody. It's me, the Fedge, host of Inside the Eye Live. Before the Sunday mainstream media political pundit talk shows, there is Inside the Eye Live, where we break down some of the weekly mainstream media talking points before the talking points even get aired. Add in some entertaining stories, weather, cats, intriguing and informative guests, and you get one of the most listened to Saturday morning streaming media political talk shows going today. And it's all right here on our flagship station, Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. So join me, the Fetch, for Inside the Eye Live every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern. It is truly intelligent media for the politically aware.
Welcome to Sacred Matrix, a divine paradigm of love and universal consciousness, with your host, Janet Kira Lessin and Dr. Sasha Lessin.
Together we transform the world.
And now, here are your hosts, Janet Kira and Dr. Sasha Lessin.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Sacred Matrix on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. And I'm your host, Janet Kira Lessin, with my co-host, Dr. Sasha Lessin. And today we have a panel with another one of my co-hosts, Karen Christine Patrick, and her partner, Bret Sheppard, and Dr. Ken Johnston. And we are going to discuss all the various conferences that we've just been at, where we were presenters, and we had tables, and we were dealing with this huge, ever-expanding UFO audience. And the members are becoming more educated and enlightened. And what kind of information are they responding to? And what kind of questions are they asking? So Janet, Kira, and Dr. Sasha were at Contact in the Desert and Alien Cosmic Expo in June. And Karen, Bret, and Dr. Ken Johnston were at the annual Roswell event, which is getting bigger every year grows. And we certainly live in super interesting times. Dr. Les, what would you like to say before we bring on Karen and Bret and Ken?
Well, I think this panel will be able to further test some of my major hypotheses, which come in the category of simulation theory, that is, the universe is fractile, and that every molecule of the universe reflects everything there is, including the creator of all, and that we've now come to a time where the fractals of higher consciousness, that or even those that reside in our genetics, are becoming activated, and we get people like Ken Johnston who are coming forth now, and their mission becomes clear. Karen Patrick, and you, Janet, and so we have these wonderful people, and Bret, who's able to see things in the pictures that are there, that has been most of us been blinded to. And what this is something fractile is being activated in us, so we can see more. We've stood on the shoulders of giants, and now we can really see more. And we've gone to these conferences, and we'll see that there's some of the major subjects that have been really discussed openly are disclosure, the outsiders, and the experiencer movement. Will it be taken over by the fear mongers or by the people that profess love as the way out of this mess?
And I guess we'll start with Karen. Karen.
Hey.
Welcome.
Hello. Glad to be on Sacred Matrix again. Can you hear me? Hello.
Yes, we can hear you. Hello.
Okay, good. Can you hear me now? Good. Yes,
we can
yes.
hear you.
Well, I got to be at Contact in the Desert and meet you guys. It was really awesome. Somewhere in there we didn't mention that we did an online conference, an Anunnaki subject conference, which I think I was able to actually do a presentation. And then I was able to go with Bret and Kim to the Roswell UFO Festival and Conference, which is a hoot. Everyone needs to check that out. It's so much fun. It's everywhere from people dressing up as aliens and their pets dressed up as aliens, and also really serious presenters, but they look like they're having a good time and relaxing. It's not a very frenetic kind of thing in terms of it's very family oriented. People would be very comfortable keeping their families. Just lovely, lovely people that put it on. So that was my involvement. Did you want to talk to Bret and Ken real quick, or do you want me to just launch in? What would you like me to do?
What would you like to do?
Well, I'll just hit the highlights. I was at the UFO Congress and got to meet a lot of people that, it's fun, people watching, celebrity watching, if you are interested in these topics, because everybody's there, like, oh, there's Alejandro Rojas, and oh, there's, David Hatcher Childress, who's, by the way, a really nice guy. My daughter is a fan of his, so I said, you got to take a picture for my daughter. So he took a picture with everybody, signed books. You guys were there. Of course, with all your books, and it was really fun. It was really great meeting you guys and getting to know you and seeing you do what you do. It was just that kind of event. It's probably the premier event in terms of the types of people that come there as far as like celebrity watching. But it was a nice venue, very, very beautiful venue, and just very interesting topics. They have a film festival that's just top notch, where you get to see the early releases of films that are going to be coming up in the next year. I like that one. Our conference was like a marathon. Like, people need to know about this one. We did this conference with portalstoascension.org, right? Neil Geyer,
yes.
Portal to Ascension or Ascensions? Portaltoascension.org. I got it right. We did we did I don't know how many hours was it? Over 8 hours or 7 hours, something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Just incredibly in-depth conversation about the impact of the Anunnaki, both in ancient times. It's quite the soap opera of involvement in ancient times, and then just other different aspects. My own presentation was Anunnaki and the moon, because I'd been working with Ken Johnston and had access to some of these things that Bret had discovered, and I was able to share both the ancient ruins that are found on the moon as well as modern structures, and to talk about how it's not just ancient aliens anymore, right? That's sort of a way to make it easy for people to get their minds around alien involvement, as long as it was like a long, long time ago, right? But, they're still with us. I mean, it's a very busy galaxy. It's a very busy solar system. We're just out of the loop, But we're on the verge of knowing more. And so this was in super in-depth information. I learned a lot from all the presenters. So, yeah, people need to check that out. They can still go to that website, find our Anunnaki conference, and watch it on their own time. Probably the most cutting-edge stuff about the Anunnaki you can find. And then the involvement in Roswell, like I said, it was really, really, really fun. I was just like, they were letting people in at a really regular rate, so you just didn't get overwhelmed as someone running a table. And I was mostly womaning a table there. And so it was really fun. The people would really listen. I mean, someone just walked by, hey, hi, give them a card, whatever. But some would really pay attention and really listen to what we're trying to say. And some people would go, oh, yeah, I knew it. There's bases on the moon. I knew they found artifacts. I mean, that's what they were convinced of all these years. And I never forget this one guy who was kind of lost looking. He was going, they had us going in a counterclockwise direction from coming into the door. And then when a few people would come out, they'd go ahead and let a few more in. And this guy got to our table, which was like 2/3 of the way through the whole, facility. and I guess I look like a friendly face or something, but he looks at me, and he's from Pakistan or somewhere, and he goes, "So what is this Roswell thing all about?" You know, like he's seen the crash. You know, by now he's seen all the photographs. He's seen all the, you know, little crash, you know, retrieval, you know, models and everything. He was like, he doesn't understand it, you know. So I just told him, my opinion of Roswell, it is a real event. There's so much information, so many books, so many witnesses, deathbed confessions, of, you know, people who've seen the artifacts in the bodies and everything. And I just said, this is when we know, those of us who looked into it deeply, this is when we know the government had to make up a story and had to lie to us. It's like a marker. So of all the cases, this is when we clearly saw the pattern of disinformation, that they began to quash this UFO story. So he seemed pretty satisfied with that answer. But it was great, and you know, this is a season for conferences. It's the, you know, time of the year. A lot of people getting out. We caught a lot of people heading out to their family's destinations for 4th of July, because it was 1st, 2nd, and 3rd of July. And the kinds of questions people asked me, it wasn't like they didn't know something already. It's like quite a few people already knew stuff. It's like they're just trying to gel it in their head, you know, what's this UFO thing about? And I wouldn't say I met hardly anyone who was too much of a debunker. A few people kind of hung around and were, I don't know what the deal was, but were, you know, trying to ask tricky questions. It wasn't that bad. Most people were just wanted to hear the information. They just want to hear it straight up from somebody who's looked into it and gives their opinion about things. And I told them, this is my opinion. You know, did we go to the moon? Yeah, I think we went to the moon. I think what happened? They found stuff that they didn't want to tell us about, so they began an obfuscation process with the photographs and everything. And here we are. We're going to have that, some of that come out during disclosure. So great events, great people. I was really pleased with the level of questions and interest that was happening at all the conferences. So anyway, that's my report. I'll pass the talking stick.
Okay, and who are you passing it to?
I am passing it to Ken Johnston so he can set it up for Bret, because they got a kind of a 1-2 punch of their information.
Okay, take it away, Ken. Welcome to the panel, Ken.
Thank you very much, Janet and Sasha.
Good to have you back.
It was really fascinating. This is actually the 21st UFO festival at Roswell that they've been continuous for 21 years, and running into people like Travis Walton and Stanton Friedman and a lot of the very famous people as far as what's going on in research about UFOs and aliens and things over the past quite a few decades, 4 decades or more. I was fascinated by it. And here we were with all of the old and greats and just a little old me, and we had our little table there. I felt very, very honored to be part of it. Yet it was wonderful because people were coming over here and telling me after the presentations I gave 3 special hour-and-a-half talks, and people would come and say, wow, we've not heard any of this information. We didn't know that there were bases on the moon. And then they were just fascinated by some of the things that I was able to bring forward. And then on Saturday, they have what they call I call it electric light parade. It's a special parade where they have judges and they judge people in their alien costumes. And there was one really, really cute one where there were 3 young little girls, probably 10 years old or younger, and they had a little tiny spaceship made that was probably made from a wagon, and they all had antennas and on it. It was just really, really cute to see how young people are involved in the whole thing at Roswell. So the whole town really gets together. Actually, we went through almost a 2-mile parade, and there were places where the people lined the streets as many as 8 and 10 deep. So it was really something special. We really had a great time there. It was grueling. I'll say this, once we got back, it took us a good 2 or 3 days to recoup. So,
it's so hot in the desert, yes. I can relate.
Yeah. Now, I know Bret had some really interesting experiences while we were there, and let him jump in and kind of sign on.
Okay, Bret. Hi, Bret.
Hello. Hi.
There you go.
Hi, good. While I was at the Roswell Museum, it was really strange, how I felt like I was with my family, and these are like research giants, that are sitting around me, and I don't. It just feels normal to me. You know what I mean? It's just like normal. And they come up and they'd share some information with me, and I'd share some information back, and it was really cool because they're like, there was one I really got a kick out of. His name was Frank Kimball, and he is an educator. He's a college professor at the military school there in Roswell, and he was telling me about the geology of the crash site and everything else. And he showed me a picture of this crash site, and I started doing my, whatever you call it, pareidolia thing with it, and putting together the pieces in my mind. And I'm looking at it, and it's telling a story to me, And I said, "Oh, please give me those images, I'll draw some pictures, and we'll try to piece some of this stuff together," because he had images that were all the way back from 1947 till the present, and it shows how they changed geologically, in all of the images. And what was interesting is the images changed, and so did the content in the images that I was actually seeing with my own eyes. And what was really amazing about the whole Roswell convention is the way people really pulled together, all of this information, and it was just a very sharing event, And when I was doing some tech work for Ken, while he was talking and that, he let me jump in a little bit, with some of the information that I had. And it felt really good to get that out,
And I get to jump in on this real fast on you there, Bret, is that one of the things that came to me and I came to realize is that a lot of this artwork, as you call it, and I had to tell everybody when they would get close to us, I said, now, artists use a different part of their brain than those of us that are engineers and pilots. And it's fascinating because if you go back and look at ancient Egypt and the type of communications was done with pictures and symbols and things. So I'm beginning to see in a lot of the artwork that Bret has done is that perhaps this is a universal way to communicate between different species. And I think that's going to be fascinating when Bret's putting it all together in a book that he's working on. It'll start showing this different form of communication. It was really an eye-opener for me there.
Wow, fascinating. Did you have more to say? And then I just was briefly. I was looking at your pictures, and there's a guy. I guess he has stilts on. I hope he has stilts. Is that tall person really that tall, or were they on stilts?
Yeah, he was a really super nice guy. Yeah, he was like 10 feet tall.
And he was on stilts, right?
Yes.
Yes, he was.
Yes, he was a man in black with long pants.
Long pants, yes. Okay.
10 feet tall, that just makes him an average Anunnaki at 10 feet
that's
tall.
That was interesting to see the scale. There's a fellow that could have been as tall as an Anunnaki, and he dwarfed all of you. I'm going to put that up on Aquarian Radio, listeners. I don't quite have it up now, but I will in a little while. So
they had hired some actresses, and they had done such a wonderful job. One was I don't know her name. I wouldn't say it anyway, but she was dressed like Dana Scully from the X-Files, and she did such a good job. She was so cool. And there was another lady that Ken actually knew, and she played like Princess Leia, and she was walking around and all that.
Oh, well, she was playing Princess Leia after she had been kidnapped by Bubba the Fett. Anyway, she had the
Jabba the Hutt.
It was a fascinating costume she was wearing. I'll put it that way.
Yes, it was.
Oh yeah, they were so fun. It's funny because she had sent Ken the picture of them together, and it was kind of nice because he shared it with his family and all that. Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Really cool.
I think one of the biggest highlights, Janet, one of the biggest highlights I had was getting a chance to spend a lot of time with Travis Walton, and because we had lunch together with him and talk about the new movie. He's putting out a new, Fire in the Sky type movie that tells more of the truth of, we all were kind of disappointed in the way it was portrayed in the original Fire in the Sky movie, and after getting a chance to understand Travis better, just as a normal human being, was a great opportunity, and one in which I will remember for a long time. In fact, that they're looking forward to us all rendezvousing together at these kind of functions and things. So I guess it looks like the A-team, as I like to call Karen and Bret and myself as the A-team, we're going to keep it moving as fast as we can so we can get the word out to everybody.
That's excellent. Sash, did you have something to say? And then we'll go back round robin.
Okay, yeah. So some of the things that I'd like to say at the conference is that I noticed there's a lot of discussion about imminent disclosure and whether President Obama will be forced to disclose because Podesta is making this a campaign issue that he may not pull out at just the right time to stop Trump. And so there was a lot of discussion of very astute people like Grant Cameron and Richard Dolan and people on that thing. And some of the interesting things about disclosure that's come out so clearly is Nick Pope's stuff about a fellow named McKinnon, a Brit who was trying to find stuff in the CIA and the military about the secret space program, and he found all kinds of stuff from our our Mars force and lots and lots of stuff. And of course, the United States wanted to get him for the telling secrets, but the English didn't put him in jail. Then there was the whole bunch of presentations about the outside influences on Earth. David Wilcox and Mike Barra. They had Corey Goode up there at the desert experience, Joshua Tree Desert thing. And basically, we start to see there's well-documented evidence that not only is there are there space fleets involved with Earth, but they also go in and out of inner Earth. And that some of the civilizations in inner Earth have been actually saying they were extraterrestrials. And so there's a lot of information in that regard. And as far as the whistleblowers, Stanton Friedman went into this whole thing about how you have to lie if you belong to the government. It says, and he showed us the thing, they can put you in jail forever for treason if you don't lie when you're asked about certain things. So that was very interesting. Our government is... and then, of course, this is all balanced by people like Corey Goode and Randy Kramer, who have been charged with making disclosure possible and bringing the runaway civilization that's trying to take over this part of the galaxy. And all of this boils down to, we see a major stirring in people, a stirring of their ambassadorhoods from the extraterrestrials and inner Earth beings and the multidimensionals who have decided to help us. And there's some, the old school negativity, David Jacobs, who's very afraid of what the ETs are going to do, and he doesn't like probes very much, and so putting a negative cast on it. But this was all cast away by a wonderful person called Sherry Wild, who just spoke right from the heart. She's an ambassador, just like Ken is, and so are many of you out there. And when you hear Sherry Wild talking, it's just like the disciples felt when they heard Jesus. I mean, she's the real thing.
Aw. Yes.
If I can jump in real fast on that, Sasha.
Okay, go ahead, Ken. Yes.
Yeah. Most of you probably know who Linda Moulton Howe is, one of the best research reporters, not just in America, but all over. She came and did an interview, came over to do an interview with me, and wanted to come to my house and see the archive directly, the things that I've saved, and got the chance to meet Bret and Karen. And after she got there at 2 o'clock, it was going to be just for an hour and a half, and she didn't leave till 9:30 once she got to know people. And she opened up to us and said on one of her personal contacts, who was a remote viewer, that did some research for her and said that 2016 is the year of disclosure. So that kind of makes it get a little more exciting for me. And then her whole interview and all is on the Earth Files. And after a chance to look at it, she has done the research, and she goes into so much detail. Any of the things that I've been attacked in the past by the NASA attack dogs, as I call them, and JPL, and she's gone back and pulled up the records, their own records, and shown that they're, barking up their own tree, and that the information and everything that I've kept all these years and making available to the world now is the truth. And that's really exciting for me, not to have to stand up all by myself, but to know that there's a tremendous team and a tremendous moving, I think, worldwide, because since we got the first books put out, we have people from all over the world that are contacting us by email and stuff, and we're talking to them and getting them to realize that if they have any information, now's the time they need to come forward. They don't have to worry about it as much as I did to begin with, that will be targeted, because how can you target people that are telling the truth? And that's what we're doing.
Oh. Hi. Yes, well, it was interesting, working with Linda Moulton-Howe, and she asked me to do a little bit of research. She said, well, this, we need to really kind of unfold this Ken Johnston story, and get the truth out. And she said, do you know any more on his story? And I said, give me a couple of hours, and I'll get back with you. And I pulled up all kinds of information, like basically things that proved that Tchaikovsky Crater was actually filmed on Apollo 14. And it's a total contradiction of what some of the attack dogs have been saying. And they actually, I actually found a document that states in it, it's actually the Command Service Module transcript from the Apollo 14 mission. And it's a conversation between Edgar Mitchell and Stuart Roosa. And Stuart Roosa was the command module pilot. He was floating around, orbiting the moon. And it states in there that he's looking through a sextant at Tchaikovsky Crater. And what the significance of that is, a sextant is part of the 16-millimeter camera. In the command service module. So they're lying. They do have that film. They've never showed it to the public, and that proves it.
Wow.
And do you have a copy of the film in Ken's collection?
No.
No, we sure don't. All we have is basically that transcript, and I also found one of the Apollo 14 images of Tchaikovsky Crater when they were TEIing toward the Earth. It's a trans-Earth insertion, so they were leaving the moon, and they caught an image of Tchaikovsky Crater, and that basically proves that they were on a trajectory in an orbit that makes it totally possible that they not only went around and filmed Tsiolkovsky Crater once, but probably twice, and third time. Because it was actually on the third day when this transcript was written. That means that Stuart Roosa was not attached to the command module yet. So he was still in orbit. He wasn't attached to the lunar module yet, So they were still floating around in orbit, and he was taking 16-millimeter film of Tsiolkovsky.
One of the interesting things that came out on that is that when Dr. Page had me show that particular reel, about 15 minutes of Apollo 14 as it's going around, and it definitely showed in the crater the 5 domes inside there. The very next day, when I checked the same reel out from the NASA photo lab and showed it to the public, that had been painted out, and it was very, very fortunate that I don't know if you'd call it fortunate or it was just meant to be that Bret was able to find the picture of Tchaikovsky Crater where they had painted out, but not quite enough to totally obliterate the domes, because you can see through the painted area the glow of the 5 domes in one complete area there, and so it's still there. They didn't get rid of it. That's the problem. When you say, could we get a hold of that film, we need to start a Freedom of Information Act to force them to go in their cryogenic storage and everything else and find these films, pictures, and reels, the things that, like the ones that I have that are off the original negatives, as well as the 16 millimeter films and the 70 millimeter Hasselblad pictures, if we could get a chance to look at the actual real pictures and the real films, then we'd be able to.
Yes.
There would be no
petitions.
About
yes.
Right.
A big movement to get this to happen. Yeah, that would really. But this larger thing that you raise is that these things aren't accidents. That you have been brought. The chances of you and Bret and Karen being brought together. That all these people that are now coming forth, the alignment of the planets now. It's so obvious there's some larger plan, and that the fractals within us of the Creator of all are operating. To save this planet.
Oh.
Yes, I agree.
Well,
it's basically we can't really move on until we get our history straight.
Right. Well, what's interesting is that I zeroed in on Linda Moulton Howe. I started with Linda when I started my UFO Penn State discussion group back from 89 to 93 at Penn State University. And I sponsored her and brought her to Penn State. I've been kind of tracking her off and on, and sometimes she's more interesting than other times. So I kind of drifted away for a number of years, and then this year, for some reason, what she was saying stood out. So I found myself drawn to her presentations, and indeed, it's like she finally has arrived into her full awareness and power and presence and presentations and everything. It's like she's there. And so she was talking about some things that no one else was talking about. She was the only woman on these disclosure panels, and then Sherry Wild was the only other woman. And it was just amazing the lack of women that they're putting up on these huge panels. Certainly we know a lot.
Laura Eisenhower was there.
Oh, and Laura Eisenhower. But it's mostly predominantly male, and it's very sad to see that women are hardly ever included. And yet women are, majority of the experiencers having the major experiences. So we need to balance this out on that level. But then it was very ironic that after getting home, I think right around that period, Linda Moulton Howe contacted you and you guys and came over to see Ken. So there's some kind of connection there. But she's got some powerful information about the Ebens. I want to I'm going to make a note to order that DVD about the Ebens, because it was information about
the journey to Serpo. That's what it's about.
Yeah, but there's
the
several. The Ebens were actually making clone species that have been interacting with humanity, and she was revealing things about what's his name, Reagan, and Reagan knew everything, and so I have a separate whistleblower that's been talking about his involvement with Reagan as a agent that reported to him from Area 51. And then here's Linda with independent validation of the same information. So fascinating stuff that's emerging right now. Okay, who wants to be next? Karen, we haven't heard from you in a while.
Yeah, I'd like to kind of talk about something, because you were talking about women on the citizens hearing panel, because right behind us, like on the table settings that we had, was a guy named Joseph G. Buckman, and I talked to him at length. He had a transcript. The first, it would be 5 volumes. He had the first of one of 5  linda of these transcripts of the citizens hearing. It was fascinating reading. But, that was what Linda had directly told me. She was the only female on the entire panel. I could think of a whole bunch of women they could have put on that panel. But anyway, so I'm sitting there reading this transcript, and I decided to look. And boy, she was dead right. I was like, there's Linda. And I was like, dude, more dudes. Here's some dudes. Okay, it was just full of dudes. But it had some of the best, and I wish I could have gotten a copy, but it had some of the best comments, by the way, from Edgar Mitchell I think I've ever seen. He was, getting to the close to the end of his life, and his comments were just way out of the box compared to some of the things that he said before. So this fellow, Joseph Buckman, who also happens to be a libertarian candidate for Congress, in the Utah 1st District. So, hey, you people in Utah, you got a guy there that's on board with ufology and getting the word out. But anyway, he's trying to work out all the copyright issues and what have you to bring these 5 volumes of testimony, because it was quite an event. It was like basically equivalent to a congressional hearing, but it was I don't want to say mock hearing. It was not a real, sitting congressman, but former congressman. I wish I remember the guy's name, but one of the congressmen that was on that panel, I got to shake his hand and tell him thank you for doing that. But that was a really important event that has happened. We've had and that really, I think everyone who was testifying was giving their best at that point. They were giving a distillation of all the research. So, I mean, this momentum is building, more and more and more and more. And Roswell was fun. It had all the dress-up things, and it was a lot of fun. But people weren't making fun. I want to make that really clear. People were having fun with the idea of UFOs and aliens and stuff, and having a good time. And like I said, I have to say Roswell is an amazing town that has really embraced their high weirdness and say, yeah, this is a part of our history, and dedicated quite a bit of resources. I mean, they not only had the museum facility there to have venues, but they also were across town in the Civic Center, and that's where Ken spoke, I think at least once. So, I mean, it was not going on, and the whole downtown area had things going on. They had speakers in other venue I didn't know too much about, but I mean, they're very serious about it, and the people might be wearing an alien costume, but they're sitting asking you some serious questions. I mean, they've thought about this, So I just thought that was really great. So I just wanted to share about that. There's an attempt to get that entire, testimony out. And that's the kind of thing happening, is that you now have many, many groups of researchers, and I count all of us and the A-team here as groups of researchers collaborating together to get, serious bodies of information out there to say, hey, what gives? It's not just stories. It's not just I saw a UFO, whatever, which is important, no doubt. I don't care who sees it. It doesn't have to be a first responder, military person, somebody they call credible. I really hate that, because when you have a personal experience with seeing a UFO or alien contact or wherever, that should be respected, even if you're, no matter what. That should just be respected as part of our human experience. But I'm just impressed with the level and intensity of information coming out this year about this topic. So, next person.
Yeah.
Back to
I'd like
Ken.
to jump back. Yeah, Janet, if I may, I'd jump back into what Sasha was saying a little bit earlier about ambassadors, and I'm really proud to say that I was shocked in the regression hypnosis where I discovered that my wife was actually and is one of the selected as a child to become one of the ambassadors, and that puts us in a position where we need to get everyone that has had that type of experience to come forward, because we have a job ahead of us and not very much time to get it all done, and we just need to stay focused on getting the truth out to the world. It's been fascinating getting in touch with people from around the world and finding out that, of course, the United States, Canada, and Great Britain have been the ones that have kept the information hidden as long as they possibly can. But now they seem to be more relaxed about the truth coming out. And I had one person talk with me while I was there, and Karen, I talked twice at the convention center as well as once over at the museum. Both of them, all three of them, hour and a half at a time. But this person said that we'll be able to get the truth out where everybody can finally see it and understand, and be able to accept the fact that, we owe our DNA and who we are today not just to millions of years of evolutions from microscopic squirms up to intelligent beings, but then we have, actually I enjoy saying that I now accept the fact that I am part alien. So, it's going to be interesting, and that's going to come out in the next book that we're writing now, and that is my metaphysical experience, in which we're going to get into the experience that I have had as a youth, as well as now I want to find out who the rest of these ambassadors are that I think I had the privilege of seeing.
And I'm curious how your wife responded to your information that she is an ambassador. Was she aware of her own extraterrestrial connections or not?
This may seem a little strange to believe, but this has all hit her right at the minute, right at the same weekend that her career, or not her career, her job ended, and she had to transfer over to another company where she's just getting started. So she has not listened to or even heard the recording of the hypnotic recession thing. So, but I do know her own personal stories we've been married 32 years, about when she was a child, and then when her two daughters and she were alone, where they were not abducted, but then let's say that on the second story of a window, a gray appearing in the window outside the second story room, and then the effect it had on the kids as well as herself. So she's aware that she is a part of this overall plan, and she does have a part in it. But until I get it, well, so she's comfortable with her new position, and she will take the time, we can sit down and go through, which we're now transcribing. Well, by the way, I thought it was only about 15 minutes that I was hypnotized, but it wound up as like 2 hours and 15 minutes. But we'll get it transcribed to where we can all look at it and listen to it and read about it. So then I know she's going to be a full team player of the A-team.
Wow, fascinating. And it's interesting that she says it was the second floor, because I've seen the grays and they float. That's why I think the story of Casper the Friendly Ghost, the cartoon, came about in the 50s and 60s. If you look at it, they resemble the owl, and the owl is the screen memory, and that's what they appear to me sometimes. It's like an owl and then something like that ghostly figure, but then when you really look at them up close, or when you get past the blockage, you finally get their faces in your mind's eye, and you go, oh, that's what they look like. You know, there are variations on the gray, but there are many different species, but they're definitely grays. So fascinating. So she saw them on the second floor. I saw one floating outside the window on the 16th floor. So wow. That's nice validation. Okay, back to Bret.
Oh yes, I've gotten a chance to know Fran Johnston a little bit, and she's a very deep and wonderful soul. You know, you just really get that feeling, you know, when you talk to her, that she's got there's a lot of knowledge she has, you know, and I can't wait for her to you know, to look at this stuff, you know, and then see what she really thinks about everything. And I just you know, I think it's wonderful the direction that we're going in, you know. And Linda Moulton House said that she feels that disclosure will happen, you know, in 2016, this year, sometime, and that very well could be. Now, disclosure will happen this year. It's already happened. You know, it's just a matter of who is listening and waiting for everyone to kind of catch up on that. And you know, while I was down at Roswell, we were staying in our hotel room, and in the lobby, you know, I saw this guy, and he was Korean, I guess, Asian, and I said, he said, I'm here, you know. He talked to the hotel manager and said, I'm here to film the Roswell thing, you know, and all that. And I said, you know, you're staying in the room next to Ken Johnston. He goes, oh my God, Ken Johnston, you know. He was so happy. That's so. Yeah, I said, just go down there and talk to him. He's really nice, you know. And I went on the other side. You know how hotels are. You can go through the back door on the other side, and he went through the front door. And I guess we knocked on the room door at the exact same time.
We didn't know which door to open first or what was going on. But it was fascinating to have them there. They spent a lot of time filming the whole Roswell event, and then the last day, they managed to finally corner me and sit down and get their host, who couldn't speak any English, and we had to play the game where they're filming him, and he's asking all these questions in Korean, and I'm nodding my head and agreeing with what he's saying, and then he stops, and then the American Korean guy, he starts translating everything and telling me what the guy said, and then I answer. So they're going to have to edit that stuff all out. That was fascinating. And, let's see, just 2 days ago, I think it was 2 days ago, we had the group down in Mexico City. Give me names here, Bret. What's his name? Yeah, Edwin Garcia and their group. And we did 8. There you go. And we'd made 8 little pilots that he's going to use for advertisement to promote. It's going to be in August. Then it'll be a big 2-hour special down in Mexico City. So we're finding out that people from around the world are open, and they're now seeking us out. And I kind of feel like that the fact of me coming forward with archives that are 40 and 45 years old, depending on which mission you want to start at, and some of the stuff on my Facebook, one of the researchers, he shows the NASA picture that he got, and then he shows the pictures that I've released out in my archive. And, the difference between night and day. You can see exactly the alien bases and things that they were looking for, but you can't in the others. So hopefully we're doing the right thing, and that's what in my youth that they picked me for, is to be at the right place at the right time to do the right thing. So I'm here.
Wonderful. Sasha has wants to say something.
Yeah. Come back to your allusion to Travis Walton and how his journey is so representative of so many people who had experiences and gave them a negative kind of a connotation because they were out of control and they felt like they weren't given permission. And then as these people became mature, and as this world became mature, as this culture became more mature, people were able to realize that this was ameliorative, not pejorative. Walton got knocked out by a blast of radiation coming close to the hull of an anti-grav ship, and they fixed him up and they made him better and they made sure he was safe. And many people who are been sick and dying and so forth have been tuned up by their extraterrestrial sponsors. And as people become mature, just as Travis did, he now looks at his experience. My gosh, they were really kind to me. They were helping me. They saved me. They fixed me. Janet had experience like that too, especially with reptilians. People tend to be afraid of reptilians because they have such a different way of communicating. But when you become more mature, you see that at some point you've given your consent to assisting and being part of this ambassadorship to raise the consciousness of humanity.
Yeah, we got to hang out with Travis at the Alien Cosmic Expo. They premiered his film there for the first time to that Canadian audience, and it was very interesting going north over the border and being at a conference with all these people that are outside of the U.S., and they're very open-minded. They're in some ways behind us and in some ways way ahead of us on the information. So that's where we have the disclosure hearing on Saturday of a few weeks ago. We had, where's the list? I'll read the list. But it was fascinating. It was absolutely fascinating. Grant Cameron, Stanton Friedman, Nick Pope, Stephen Bassett, Richard Dolan, Travis Walton. They were on a panel, and Paul Hellyer, who is the Honorable Paul T. Hellyer. And what is his title?
He was a former Defense Minister of Canada.
The former Defense Minister of Canada. And then Victor Vigiani and Bob Mitchell were the moderators, and there were about 6 members of the press. So it was pretty much like the hearing they had in 2013, but this time it was over the border. And Victor Vigiani, you can see this YouTube, he said, here's some documents that I got from the Freedom of Information Act, and I forget how many he had, like 10 of them or something. I've made copies to the press. I'm distributing them to the press right now. I was forbidden by the U.S. government to disclose these, and I said, come and get me. He said, come and get me, come and arrest me, or something like that. It's like, way to go. So they're out there on that level, really bold and brazen, saying we want disclosure, we want the truth, and the truth set us free. And then we had a Friday, we had mainly disclosure and experiencers. And Friday we had an incredible panel with a bunch of different people. Where's the panel? Anyway, I can't find it right here. Oh, Joanna Ross, Sherry Wild, Grant Cameron, Sasha and Janet Lesson, very strong, Aussie, Travis Walton, Elizabeth April, and we had endless streams from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. of experiencers who came up and grabbed the mic and told their stories. And the only thing is that the real shy ones didn't come up. They're not as bold and brazen, and perhaps next year we'll create a situation where the shy ones can tell their stories as well. That's what we're working on. But the stories in Canada were a lot different, primarily, than the ones that we get like at the International UFO Congress. These people really seem to be awake and conscious. And of course, the rest of the weekend was rotating between the nuts and bolts disclosure people and the experiencers, and we went through to the end of the whole thing. I was next to the last, Janet Lesson. I did my hero's journey, a personal experience, opposite Aussie, who is wonderful. OC, I think she pronounced it, abductions and procedures. And Sherry Wild really stood out. It was a shame because they had two presentations at the same, and I wanted to see them all. And she was opposite Stephen Bassett, who did the truth embargoes and the post-disclosure world, and ended with Jason Quinn and Bob Mitchell reconnecting the spider's web. So it was a fascinating conference. I highly recommend it. They've already renewed for next year. They've outgrown their facility. They're moving it to Toronto. And Sasha wants to say something.
Well, I know that you look at the contact with extraterrestrials as the opportunity for a hero's journey. Can you tell us a little bit about that, please?
Yes, everybody has their hero's journey. Everybody has a story to tell. And as Karen points out, that right now we have the need to tell. And I hope to create some way for people to feel safe and tell their tales, because it's a piece of the puzzle. Everybody has a piece of the puzzle. And if we just focus on like a typical story where everything fits into the box, we're doing the same thing. We need to hear the stories outside of the box as well as those that are conventional.
The hero overcomes obstacles and gets an elixir, something that will help humanity, and returns to share that with humanity.
Right. And so there's a gift in everybody's journey. There's an elixir that will be a boon to humanity, which will take us to the next evolution of consciousness and for the grand awakening, which the end result will be like free, clean, green energy systems, cures for all diseases, cures for the disease of aging, political systems or governance that actually works. It doesn't make a huge slave population, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what my goal is. Okay, we're coming up on the end of the first hour. We have a few more minutes. Karen, how about you take us through to the top of the first hour commercial break? Back to you, Karen.
Yes, I'd be glad to say something about the press situation, because it was very interesting when we were at the UFO Congress for the Fox News affiliate there in Scottsdale, Phoenix area, came to and I thought, oh, that's great, the press was coming here. But he only wanted to talk to experiencers. He tended to pick really pretty girls who had weird stories. You know, and that's fine, I love weird stories. It's just that his idea was to kind of make fun of the topic. And I saw the final cut of his report, and it was disgusting. I mean, there you have some of the most serious, researchers in the world. You have some of the best, cream of the crop. And he doesn't want to talk to any of them. He just wants to try to make fun of the topic. It was really disgusting. At the Roswell event, we had that Korean program, I believe, was on the second most popular network and one of the top most popular shows on that network. So that was a very high response. And the gentleman who spoke English said that the Koreans are really just learning this stuff. This is South Korea. They don't know a heck of a lot about it, and came to Roswell to find out, and interviewed all kinds of people. So I thought that was real positive. We had quite a few internet-based radio shows and radio programs like Jimmy Church and quite a few others. We had Open Minds TV. I'm not sure they filmed there, but Alejandro Rojas was there. So, what I see the alternative press is really strong. I'm just not holding my breath about the mainstream press. They're under tight controls to do the consensus reality story. But I was just really pleased with the press. The alternative press is getting so incredibly strong. I mean, tons of radio shows. You can listen to UFO programs literally all day long if you want to, and every day of the week. And then they've moved over to video a lot. Just taking an interest, interviewing people. And Janet's really right about tell the story. And a big example was the table next to us. It's the people I actually know, James and Joanne Clarkson from Washington State. James is the UFO MUFON director, but real open-minded guy, really great couple. And they just retired, so he's written a couple books, and she's written a book, and they're sharing their stories as they came down to Roswell. But he was met there in Washington State, a woman by the name of June Crean, who was the secretary, I guess you'd say, at the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base when all the material from the Roswell crash came in, the bodies, all that stuff. And she actually got to handle some of that weird foil material. You could squish it, you could burn it, you could do anything. It would pop back into the right shape that was strewn all over the desert there at Roswell. And she, had that experience and was under military oath and didn't say a word about it until when she was retired and moved to Washington State on the coast. And then she got cancer. She died of cancer, and she basically made a deathbed confession, quite a lengthy one. Yeah.
Karen, tell them what happened with that cute country couple that came with their little video camera.
Let me finish the story. And he got her deathbed confession. Wrote a book.
You have to pause that. Pause that for the commercial.
I will.
Back in 3 minutes. Okay.
All right.
Remember where you are. Okay, we'll be back.
Radio at freedomslips.com. We'll be right back after this message.
Tune in Tuesdays at 12 noon Eastern on Studio A to hear Tammy Adams share her knowledge of an unknown realm on Talking with Your Angels. Join Tammy as she uncovers hidden secrets about the spiritual world of angels, ghosts, and other entities that have been with us longer than we know. Tammy is a psychic, a teacher, spiritual coach, a leader in her field, and will be sharing her information and stories with you. So join us on Tuesdays at noon on Studio A. With Tammy's guidance, you'll find out who has been watching over you from the other side, and soon you will be talking with your angels.
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
And aloha, everybody. Welcome back to the Sacred Matrix on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. And I'm your host, Janet Carol Lesson, with my co-host, Dr. Sasha Lesson, and panelists, Karen Christine Patrick, Bret Sheppard, and Dr. Ken Johnston on the Sacred Matrix. But before we get back to our panel discussion about conferences and the evolution of consciousness and what's going on right now in the disclosure UFO world, please go over to the donation button on on freedomslips.com. Let's get the right name of the website. It's freedomslips or freedomslips.com, and make your donation. $1, $5, $15, $20, $100, whatever you donate is greatly appreciated. And we do thank you very much for your donation, which allows Revolution Radio to bring you shows like ours on an ongoing basis. Thank you very much, Revolution Radio. So we left off with Karen, but did you want to say something real quick, Sasha?
Let Karen finish her story. Then
Okay, Karen, get back to your story. We're
about
hanging.
this couple that sent you something.
Yeah, and there was something.
Okay, yeah.
Couples.
Let me finish with James real quick. He was interviewing a woman from Ocean Shores, Washington, that turned out to be the secretary at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base when the Roswell crash material came in. And the main thing is that she basically got cancer and gave a deathbed confession to him, basically. And he wrote her story. It's called Tell My Story, and you just got to check that out. It's a really great book, Tell My Story by James Clarkson. But he's an ongoing researcher. There was a UFO crash and retrieval in Washington State near where he was living at the time. But also, yeah, we were sitting there, and the African-American couple came, and this lady was like, hey, I spotted, they were watching the Blue Angels, that jet show that happens, everybody's seen it, they're really awesome. And she was filming them as they were looping around low to the ground, and right behind that one of the Blue Angels looping towards the ground, something white, she didn't see it when she was filming, but after when she watched it, something white goes behind it twice as fast. And she goes, like that, a UFO? And I'm looking at this going, oh my God, that's it. And she said, somebody said it was a bird. That is no bird. It have to be not a bird, not a plane, maybe Superman. But anyway, this white sheet comes right behind it twice as fast. And she goes, what do you think? And I said, I showed it to Bret, and he was like, oh my gosh. And so it was kind of nice. We just passed the phone over to James from MUFON. He's going to, look at it. And he passed the phone to one of the national directors. I mean, we were doing a research case right there in the room. It was pretty awesome. And it turns out they're gonna look into it because it was, obviously something there, very obvious, and traveling, of course, faster than basically one of our fastest jets we have. So that's the fun of getting all of us in the room is we can do, we do this on the internet a lot. The beauty of the internet and nowadays is that you can collaborate with anybody now. I'm always shocked when I see somebody on Facebook. Oh my God, so-and-so's on Facebook, and they're responsive, and that has accelerated. That's like putting gasoline on a fire. It's totally accelerated, research because we can all share information, and it's tell the story, tell my story. That's the most important thing right now. And I did predict 2016 is a year of the need to tell, because people are getting pretty fed up waiting for disclosure. They're tired of being told there's nothing there. They're tired of the pseudo-skeptics telling them that they're crazy or whatever, not qualified to say anything. Hey, if you're just telling your story, you don't have to apply the scientific method. It's just your story. If somebody wants to prove something, that's fine. But you have a right to say what you saw. This is just being a witness. And too many times people are their mouths are shut because somebody shames them because they don't, didn't apply perfect science and proof to something. Much of the time, as we found from working with Ken, is any kind of proof that there is gets erased from history. It gets, bought up, it gets squelched, it gets smudged out, it's very difficult to have proof. But, when a bunch of us, when 3% or whatever the tipping point might be, the 100th monkey, whatever that is, when we get to that point, there's no denying it. And experiencers is the key. Expert, that's great if you're an expert and studied something, that's great. But when you've had a personal experience, it's a whole another thing. And I think that the ETs, that is their protocol. They're giving us personal experiences and contact. And now we talk to each other, and that is the key to the whole thing. That's the gateway. So, yeah, that's me.
Sash, you had something to say?
Yeah, sure. When I look over, I've been going to these conferences for a while, we seem to really have conquered the nuts and bolts. We know that our clandestine military has had the anti-grav craft for some time. We know that there is extraterrestrials. We are on the verge of being a space age. We have Anunnaki and Mayan spacefaring people that have been contacting the linkage and other, Michael Lee Hill and others, and Ken to actually help us with disclosure. We may well have government disclosure, although of course they'll always disclose with lies in it because they are the government. But we have a debate in the literature between the people that think the president has some actual authority, that President Clinton could say, well, I'll release this, but I won't release that as classified, and others that say, President's out of the loop. There's nothing compared to the clandestine military or even the breakaway civilization. We have a bunch of the U.S. Marines and people like Randy Kramer who've been commissioned way back from the Eisenhower days to try to preserve the government and from the Kennedys especially, to try to take the government back from Allen Dulles and the Nazis that he brought over from an Operation Paperclip that have taken over the military-industrial complex. So we have dedicated Marines whose job is to go public, to do just what Ken's doing, to tell the truth, because the truth has got the cures for cancer, the cures for radiation, the chance for us to join a much better, more loving civilization.
And with that, we pass the baton to Ken.
Well, the most fascinating part about this is that there are so many other people out there. I know we've got Donna Hare now is getting her information out, and I've come across people that, you know, I've never met before, never heard before, but then when they tell their story intermeshes with what I've been saying, and we basically prove each other. So that is disclosure in itself. I think Bret wanted to jump in and add some little information on Travis Walton. When we actually, it was fascinating. We were at the banquet when we were there then taking over.
Oh yes, we got to know Travis, and he's such a down to earth person, you know, who's you know, has a lot of introspection and is very deep. And it was just kind of neat because we were sitting across from him, and right next to him was the Betty and Barney Hill exhibit. You know, it was so cool. You know, they had the commissioned paintings from oh my gosh, Karen can help me with that name, Marilyn. Yeah, the niece of Betty and Barney Hill.
Kathleen Martin.
Yeah, thank you very much. Needed that. And there's it was just really down to earth. And when we were having dinner with Travis, you know, he had mentioned that Ken had really helped him, you know, with his own introspection about how he perceives what happened and everything to him. And it was, you know, whether it was positive or negative, he really Ken's coming out with his story, you know, was very inspiring to him. That's what he said.
Well, when I hung out with Travis, one of the things that he came to realize, I watched the light bulb go off over his head. He realized that he went out to the craft and got too close, and when the beam hit him, it killed him. He was dead, and so he would not be here if it wasn't for these ETs taking him on board and reviving him. And so what we found from our secret space program and our super soldiers is that, yes, there is a window of time where we human beings have this technology that we can revive the dead. So I'm looking forward to that.
Oh, yeah,
Kramer was killed several times and was brought back by the military. Randy Kramer.
Oh yeah, Randy Kramer's been brought back several times, and he's one of several thousand super soldiers, so however many they have, that they continually yeah. So that's fascinating. Okay, who wants to talk next? Raise your hand. I can't see it though.
I'd like to say something.
All right, Karen. The chair recognizes Karen.
Oh, thank you. My fellow colleagues. No, this is fun. You know, we're sitting there and we're just, you know, this place is fascinating because we have all the exhibitors, but we're inside the actual Roswell Museum. So you're sitting there in a little lull of time just looking at the walls at all of these displays. It's overwhelming, really. And I'm looking at this Betty and Barney. I had this fun moment because I'm looking at the Betty and Barney Hill display, and I saw a picture of the young teenage Kathleen Martin, and I was laughing because she was literally across the room. You know, it's like there's the teenage one, and there's the present day one. So we got all finished and we're all packing up. I asked her about that, and what she told me, and I thought this was really interesting, was the photo came from Look magazine, which was kind of aimed at young women and teenagers at the time. And the Betty and Barney Hill story was so hot at the time. It was the abduction of Betty and Barney Hill. It's an interracial couple. And they were, regressed, and they gave out all kinds of information you wouldn't even know unless you were an astronomer. I mean, it was just right on the money. One of the most believable, really, cases that there is. And she's the niece of Betty and them. And so she told me that case was so popular that Look magazine came out and went to her family graduation party and took those pictures and put it in Look magazine, as, oh, here's this glamorous, cute, girl that's associated with this case or whatever. And they thought, well, there's been these times when different cases like Roswell and Betty and Barney Hill and other ones were so popular. People were hungry to know that information that literally the press would make a run at it, and then somehow they'd be beat down again over and over and over and over. And, we ultimately find out that there's really only 6 corporations owning all the mainstream media. And so now, that process wasn't working. Now we have this explosion because, of course, we all have a media machine right in our smartphones. You can make a video, you can make audio, you can, put it up on the Internet. Now, and also you can film UFOs. I mean, there's way more filming of UFOs now because everybody's at a whole studio in their pocket. We're now at this point where, we've outgrown the media. We're like done waiting. When people go, we want to have disclosure from the president, I always roll my eyes because by the time we get done with those nitty-gritty, horrible political seasons where you hate all of them by the end, 50% are not going to believe whoever said, I swear I'm not going to uphold the Constitution, blah, 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 lie. Then, the next 5 minutes they do disclosure or whatever. Half the people aren't going to believe them. If you get a Democrat guy, the Republicans won't believe him and vice versa. So, I mean, to me, what I'm seeing is the power of real disclosure. To me, it's we are disclosure. We are the people. We're the ones that are telling our government. We're going to say, we the people say, you guys get with the program, and if you're not going to give us information, all of this information is coming out anyway. And not only that, but Roswell, they always concentrate on about like 5 to 10 cases, like Roswell, Rendlesham, et cetera, just a handful of things that happened 50 years ago. But, oh my God, there's people having contact every day. Michael Lee Hill is, constantly filming stuff over Lake Erie. He's had 1 million views on some of his videos of craft. This isn't something that was 50 years ago, and then the aliens left us alone. This is going on every day. So you're seeing it. You're seeing it. People just want to tell me their story. And I took the time. Like, if we went to do, they're like, okay, tell me. I want to hear it, And I've had so many times in these events where somebody said to me, you're the first person I ever told it to. So all of you guys that are experienced, be that person. Be friendly, curious, accepting, listen. Because people are dying to tell it. The need of the year to tell, because we're bottled up now at this point. And some people had military oaths, and they couldn't take it anymore, and they had to say something, like Edgar Mitchell and others. So it's really fun. It's really encouraging. So if you can get to these events, do it. I study this stuff every day, but I learn so much from other people. So it's fun. Okay.
Sasha wants to say something.
It's interesting to see just what the cover-ups are. When there's a cover-up or a false flag, Richard Dolan has said one of the big tests is when the things start coming out, the information comes out in the beginning, there'll be a bunch of local papers and outlets that have diverse accounts, not the standard Fox News type account. And that's one thing that happens. Then certain publications start disappearing, like Admiral Byrd's 2 journeys into the North Pole and into the South Pole in 1947 were covered in National Geographic and several newspapers. and then the CIA bought them all up, so there isn't any anymore. And so that's a really good thing. What is the government removing? Because that's probably going to show you a lot of the truth. Anyway, you can tell when the government is lying because that's when it's talking.
And they're going to make a new Betty and Barney Hill movie. It's based on Stanton Friedman and Kathleen Martin's book called Captured. And screenplay is being written by Bryce Zabel, who has penned a lot of, he's very involved with the, what is it called, The Day After Disclosure. I think he co-wrote that book with someone who I can't think of right now. I think it might have been Richard Dolan. And yeah, so that'll be fascinating. I'm not sure. This is an article from September 2015. I know it takes a couple years for movies to get, cast and who's going to play Betty and Barney Hill. That'll be interesting to see. But the original was James Earl Jones and Estelle Parsons. And I loved James Earl Jones' rendition of Barney Hill. If you have a chance to see the original movie, it was absolutely fascinating. And it came out in 1975. And I think that was around the same time, a few years later was Travis's. So very interesting times. Okay, back to either Ken or Bret. Who wants to take the talking stick?
Well, I guess I'm here. One of the things that's, I think, the most exciting point here is that the people are actually getting together and coming out, and the information is getting out there. It was a little bit difficult for me to finally say, okay, damn the torpedoes, full steam ahead. Let's get the information out there, and we'll see how it all turns out after that. That's a little bit of my military talk here, but that's just the way it is. And then the chance now of going back and looking at how did I wind up here not in this mess, but in this opportunity, in this timeline. I've learned so much from Bret and Karen and having to do with the communications. And a lot of it's not what comes out of our mouth. It's what kind of picture and what kind of vibes that are being put out there. And this trip down to Roswell was a tremendous experience for me to be so close to people that have been involved in trying to get the word out, and then to find out that some of them are now looking at what we're doing and what my stuff is doing. What we're doing is it's helping them deal with what they had. I mean, Britt, you were talking with Travis a lot there, more than I was, because I had to get up and go check in and check out with some of the other people because we were getting ready to make that 3-hour drive back to back here at night there. But what else did you learn from them?
Well, and Travis doesn't talk a whole lot. He's very introspective. It was very nice to get to know him, and I could almost read his mind, And I asked him, "Are you getting tired of telling the story over and over again?" And he goes, "Well, yeah, So it was kind of nice to see the human side of all of these wonderful researchers that were there, And it was weird because I was sitting right there with Travis Walton, and I actually opened up his pop for him, and I could feel him, the whole thing, and it was just very strange because I knew where he was at in his life without him telling me, It was very interesting, He just looked right at me, with the blue eyes or whatever, and I'm like, yeah, I get it, totally get it. So, there were so many wonderful people there and researchers, and I was mostly impressed with the experiencers because you could feel them, you could feel their energy, you could feel what they had experienced, what was really going on. And I really truly did not know a whole lot about the Travis Walton story, with the whole lie detector thing and all that jazz, I had to actually look it up and do a little research on it. And one thing that I found fascinating is that it was at this time when people were totally clammed up about any kind of alien anything in disclosure. It was like almost taboo to even talk about it. And basically, Travis without, just having his human experience, paved the way for so many people to come forward. And another person who has done that is Whitley Strieber. He has paved the way for these people to come forward, with their emotions and their experience. And that's what's important, Not all the, well, this happened to me and this happened to me and this happened to me and all the facts. That's just boring, The thing is these emotions and these deep feelings that people have all over the world is what disclosure is about.
The thing of these deathbed confessions are wonderful and great. I like Bill Pollack and some of those, but we want them to come forward now while they're still alive, so they can show that they are for real, and that what has happened is real, and what needs to happen is real, and we all need to be a part of it.
Right on. Yeah, I think it's kind of poetic that Whitley Strieber is such an eloquent writer, and he's able to put into words his experiences and his series of books and translate it to the average person so that they can relate to it. That's one of my early starts was Whitley Strieber, and I'm really grateful. I unfortunately I did not get to see his presentation. I wasn't feeling well at that time, and I missed it. But he's just, one of the pioneers. And then, of course, watching Travis for 40 years, how he's grown, and he's had to deal with it. And I think it is very important that he is kind of a down-home country boy, and he's not a braggart or full of ego, that he's just a simple folk, and he shows people how you can walk through life with grace when you've had something extraordinary like this out-of-the-box experience that has really, literally changed his whole world and all his friends. And it's a wonderful documentary, and I'm glad to see they're going to redo Fire in the Sky, because they certainly screwed that one up the first time around. So I'm looking forward to that the retelling of the story. Okay, who wants to talk next? Sash, you want to say something?
Well, I just would say that, when you have an experience with another being, to really look at this concept, is this another? Is it really an other? Or is there a resonance that you can feel that other being resonate within you and know that you are resonating within them? Then we can get over this dichotomous way of being opposed to someone or something all the time, and we can embrace one another as all part of the same continuum, here to inform each other by smoky mirrors or harsh mirrors, that we are all one and that we're all evolving back to source.
Karen.
One of the things to tag onto that, if I may.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Sasha, that is, people, now that more and more information is coming out, people becoming a little more comfortable with getting into their own self, such as the regression session that you did. I'm very much looking forward to doing more and going in. And I had questions. People asked me, said, "Well, have you ever had an experience?" And up until this point in Roswell last week, I had always very quickly changed the subject, went into things that I knew in this mind firsthand. But then the people from Korea were talking, and I finally decided, you know what? I can say, yes, I have. And I very quickly said, you're going to get to read more about it in the next volume when we get the next book out. So I'm kind of springboarding off of that as a little advertising, but it's true. I'm comfortable. I have become comfortable with realizing that, yes, I have had experiences. And there are more people out there like me that have had to deal with the dreams or the thoughts or the mind of what something has happened, but they were kind of afraid to go into it, because the way the government here in this country has done is, if you even open your mouth about anything that's like that, then you're tagged as being either insane, crazy, or, thrill-seeking. I don't know what they want to call it. But finally, I think America, Canada, and Great Britain has reached a point. Now, this was the one key I wanted to make a little bit earlier, and that is we've made it easier now that our government come back and say, well, yes, we have lied, but we did it all for a good reason, because that's what Brookings Institute told us we should do, that our society wasn't mature enough to be able to handle that. And now that the information has come out, and now that people are more comfortable with the fact that extraterrestrials do exist, yes, they are more advanced than us, yes, they may have had something to do with our DNA, that they're now willing to come forward and discuss it, and they're not is not going to be labeled as crazy. And now the government can say, as I said, we're giving them an out, is what I'm saying. We're giving the government an out, and they can still maintain their supposed control, although it's supposed to be of the people, by the people, for the people. Now they can say that it was to help, and now they're ready to help us all again, and we can get into the anti-gravity. We can take and do things that will help save this earth of ours, this beautiful blue marble, and all because the truth is finally coming out.
Right on.
Right on, yeah. Okay, Bret, are you there? There's some background noise. Maybe you guys can.
Yes, I'm here.
Mute. Yeah, there's some kind of background.
Interesting about this. One of the excuses used by the establishment to withhold information is because of the panic that seemed to follow with the program that Orson Welles did of the Martian invasion. But some of my reading lately from Leith and Sala and others had talked about how when Roosevelt actually had a meeting with some of the extraterrestrials, and he said, we've got to tell the public about this at once. It's our duty to let them know. And they said, hey, wait a minute, boss. Let's see how the public will react. And so they staged for President Roosevelt this whole elaborate thing. They got Orson Welles to do H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds. They made it as scary as possible. People committed suicide and ran into the hills and everything. And they said, see, boss, you can't let them know. And he says, you're right. Okay, let's have MJ-12 and keep it a secret.
Yeah, that's pretty much the case. That goes all the way back to the Holy Roman Empire, during World War II and Nazi Germany. They had we had acquired technology from them, that was also inspired from the ET real races, or they call them the Aldebarans and such. And there were quite a few, all of the spokespeople, in the media that were putting things out about UFOs at the time were all named George, by the way. That was like And what was interesting about that, there was George Adamski, and all the rest of them. Yeah, and their whole thing or whatever, was to say, don't be alarmed, there's UFOs or whatever, and they put themselves out there on purpose, to look sort of not really credible, So it was just like a media thing or whatever, so that we could fly our German technology around California and other places. And by the way, those are very dated-looking UFOs. Those, I actually know what they look like. I've seen them myself. And not even 100 feet from my car. So I know exactly what this stuff looks like. And it's way more advanced than it was in the 50s. That was the old model. That was like the Model T of UFOs. You had this, the typical cake-topped type saucer, that it looked like a hat, basically. And those were called Hanabus. And they were very, very typical of German technology. If people would just look at it with that perspective, or with that perception, that you can easily see when you do the research into the old World War II type technology that Sheppard was working on, and the others that came over on Project Paperclip. See, our scientists were not at war; they were sharing stuff. It was our countries that were in in the media. We were supposedly at war, and the whole thing is completely socioeconomic. That's the only reason for that. But our scientists were on the same page. We weren't mad at Wernher von Braun, who started our space agency, or anything like that. The father of rocketry. He came directly from Project Paperclip in Nazi Germany. So just for an example, all of their technology came over here. Werner von Braun's technology that he brought with the rocketry was incredibly ingenious, yet incredibly fundamental compared to what they were actually working on.
Yeah, the fuel-burning rockets are just a cover-up for something much more powerful and much, much faster. There's an American genius named Caldwell who basically went into, lived his whole life on bases, and we've had really advanced spacecraft that have been facilitated in the skin particularly, and in the types of the way mercury was used, to make craft that can go way beyond this galaxy even now. We've had it for some time.
Oh yeah, we've had it for, at least that the public is aware of since the 30s, and even prior to that. There is a fundamental Earth technology, that they are not telling people about, that deals with the electromagnetism of the Earth and the toroidal type system that is going around, I truly believe that our ancestors were very much in tune with that energy, and they could do amazing things. They could move giant, massive, boulders and this and that, basically just getting together and actually, I believe that they used to do it with frequency, with sound technology. Because I read about that with the old, like Tuatha De Danann stories and that they used to in the old Pictish stories, Crutane and them. They used to get together and they used to hum. They used to go, and they do it at a hue or a certain frequency for different reasons, either to heal the tribe, or to actually physically move something. So it's very fascinating what our ancestors were able to do when the Earth's magnetic field was at a certain height.
Yeah, and they built their particular sacred sites, places like Karnak, where there's fault lines and water that runs underneath, and when you get a whole bunch of people meditating in a place, and you're focused on certain constellations aligned certain ways, they're able, particularly in the hours just before dawn, when the piezoelectric energy along the ley lines changes direction, it gives a big burst. And one of the things about the anti-grav craft is, for a time, they didn't want to have too many of them going at one time, or it would mess everything up. And so the anti-grav craft from Agartha and that from our clandestine military has had to really take that into consideration. There's been cooperation at the highest levels of civilizations within the Earth and those looking at the Earth, and the clandestines that are part of this Earth, in my humble opinion.
Okay. We have about a little bit less than a half an hour left for the show. So where do we want to go with the information we want to convey to our listeners? Who's next?
I'll go next.
Karen, are you?
I want to make,
okay.
I'd like to make it clear we are maintaining very good radio silence here at our location unless one of us is speaking. So I'm noticing that there's background information is not coming from our location. So this is an FYI.
And I wonder if that might be on Sean's end. Sean, if you're listening, could you double check your mic, because there's some background conversation coming through. Okay.
It's funny because I remember watching something about them sinking their boats.
Yeah, it's quite a bit.
Yeah, somebody's talking. It's not from us. Okay. Somebody's got a mic on. It's not here. We don't have any talk about.
We get. It's amazing how often we do get a bit of, crosstalk and electronic noises and everything. Particularly when we're talking about Nazis, that kind of works out. But I wanted to say something because I got into, you get into conversations you normally would not get into. And besides the fact that the Nazi paperclip effort was bringing German scientists that were doing rocketry, but also doing anti-gravitational craft. Another group of scientists were the mind control scientists. They were the ones experimenting, unfortunately, on people in the concentration camps. A lot of people don't know that the groups of people that they picked that were marginalized, so they picked like homosexuals, they picked people that were disabled, they picked the people that were like the Roma or the Gypsies, as well as the Jewish people, and then they had all these people, in these camps that were available to them, and they created experiments that you morally, legally, and according to the Geneva Convention could not do, that they did on these people. And one of the things that they did was develop high-level, mind control techniques using just everything they had in their arsenal: hypnosis, power suggestion, drugs, different psychotronic drugs. And these guys were brought over to the United States and located mainly in California that I know of. And there was a base in China Lake, California. And so this is another untold story. I happen to know about it because I was, personally involved. I believe that I was set up to be put into one of the programs for Randy Kramer and Corey Good. Were put in, basically, when I was hearing all the testing that they were receiving, I was having a big aha moment because I received some of the same kinds of testing. And also Andrew Brishaga, when he talked about, they literally needed to have kids in the program because adults are they're set in stone already. Their belief systems and all are pretty much set. They wanted to get kids, I was tested at 7 years old when I first entered the first grade in the California school system. I'm going to just talk through the talking. I'm a little not happy about that right now. But anyway, basically, so they were, wanted tabula rasa, the blank slate, to work from in these children, and they were looking for a couple of factors: intelligence. They were looking for psychic capacity of some kind. I was given the ESP test with those ESP cards that have a wavy line and a triangle and a circle and a square. And I'm supposed to try to guess, which card it was according to, okay, this is the next one, this is the next one. Completely unknown to my parents, by the way. I was given a full psychological evaluation and also this ESP test in the vice principal's office was this guy in kind of a rumply bad tweed suit who smelled of professor. I mean, I think he was some kind of professor. But anyway.
Take care of him. He smelled of professor.
Yes. And I don't know who he was. He looked over the top of the glasses at me. I don't know if he was approving or disapproving. Oh, and I did the Rosarch test, the ink blot test, which is a lot for a 7-year-old trying to figure out what's going on. But, yeah, basically they put me in the gifted and talented program, and I tell the stories often as I can because I know there's other people who are triggering off of what I'm saying. They've been through it as well. And there they evaluated us and observed us, I didn't particularly get involved in the part where they went on field trips, but according to other kids, they're now, we call them program kids. Bret and I are both program kids who had, evaluations like this and monetarization, all through our school years. And basically put us into programs. Now, somehow or another, through some circumstances, I dodged the programs because my parents got really upset that I was, this was going on. I told them about it, and they took me out of the school system and put me into a parochial school, which is a whole other story, right? I kind of think that's a level of mind control too. But yeah, I wasn't directly in that program, but I was monitored off and on. I was aware of it at junior high level and high school level. So then, I guess I washed out. I don't know. I was a coal. And other kids ended up being either super soldiers or psychics or part of the Sentinel programs or part of the secret space program, which I'm ever more convinced is real since I've been through Ken's material, because Apollo stopped at 17. They had the hardware being on the assembly lines all the way to Apollo 20. Ken has told us if we kept going at the pace we were, that NASA would have had us on Mars somewhere in the 1970s, and I'll let him tell you about that. But I'm just really convinced that they found stuff that they weren't ready to tell the public for many reasons, and so they went underground with what I believe is a secret space program. It's quite well developed by now. Because I'm a grandmother. I have a 7-year-old grandson, and it's kind of a situation where that's a lot of years that just didn't go anywhere. I think all the energy, money, scientists, resources all went to the secret space program, and we've been dinking around with robots in the space station ever since. You know, robots on Mars, robots on Mars. Why aren't they on the moon? How come they don't put robots on the moon? That's kind of interesting. Rovers on the moon. But they've been dinking around in near Earth orbit ever since. And we've sat in this spot in awareness for decades, right? So obviously they're doing something on the side. The financials are there, the technical expertise is there. They have got us, in a holding pattern. So, that's got to be one impetus towards disclosure, is how many people have been involved in these programs, and eventually where'd the money go? Like we paid for all these programs, and we're not necessarily getting very many, remote viewing programs that go around the moon, and Bret can tell you more about that. They go around the moon supposedly taking pictures, and you spend $1 billion for that particular program, and we get like a handful of pictures that the public ever gets to see. So, that's pathetic. It's pathetic. Why aren't they showing us film? That's the other thing. Why are we only getting still pictures and grayscale pictures all this time?
Right.
We never, especially the moon, we never get color, we never get film. My guess is because of UFOs zipping around, So yeah, we're having a lot of background noise, guys. We'll plow through. That's my bit. I'll pass it on to Ken or Bret.
Yeah, who's making all that noise? Sasha, what would you like to say?
Oh, just the disclosure. It's not just about the extraterrestrial presence or the interterrestrial presence, but once you start opening up disclosure, you're going to find that the people that have been running the clandestine military, a certain faction of them, have committed all kinds of mass murders and genocides, like the Twin Towers, and basically they're responsible for the murder of millions and the starvation of millions more, and it's just playing us against each other so that we don't realize who's been in control, and so that there's great fear among the establishment. It isn't just that they're taking people for their programs and as couriers and stuff, but there's a group of, they are terrible things that they do to children, making children murder other children, making them into couriers, ultimately making them into human sacrifices. And we've been, Monique Lasson and others have been, and Richard Dolan's done some research on it too, have been uncovering these terrible things. And that's partly what's going to come out. All the money stolen, all the people killed, all the inventions held, all the pollution that's been allowed, by the power elite that controls things. And once we have more and more disclosure, then our friends who are really trying to help us get out of this matrix can do something. But I think that the critical thing that Kissinger's and others have asked for is, well, would you let us murderers get away and not kill us if we fess up? And maybe that's what we got to do, have some kind of a reconciliation and truth going.
That'd be great. Okay, Ken or Bret, what would you like to add? We're almost out of time. In about 15 minutes. Ken, Bret, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Yes, I'd just like to say that there is a lot of evidence of things that are actually physically our history, that have never been talked about, and there are. I'll stop saying because I assume that people do. So there are we've got the evidence that is out there for the public to see, and the avenues that all of you wonderful radio people have given us to get it out there has been wonderful, because we can't run a magazine or something or a newspaper or something like that. We could, but it would not be as effective at all. So it's been a wonderful avenue of communication. And what's really unique about the type of communication that I'm learning about from extraterrestrials is that we will eventually not need to do this anymore, because we'll be able to feel what's going on in the morphogenic field. We won't even need to do this anymore, and we'll be able to concentrate on things that are incredibly important, like having a roof over our head, and making sure our neighbor has a roof over their head, you know. So these are things that are that I consider highly important, you know. And as important it is to disclose everything, it isn't really the information like I told you so, or we found out, and or else, and stuff like that, you know. The thing that's incredibly important about it is to rectify history so that we can move on to that place where everyone has a home and everyone is settled and we can make families again. Maybe they'll do a baby boomer thing again like they used to do, and show a bunch of diaper commercials and inspire people to have babies, you know, or something. But we'll be able to actually move on as a society from all of this negativity and all of this brainwashing and all of this media hype and all of this garbage that doesn't really mean an incredible amount, you know, because most people would just rather go fishing or, you know, or have the mind space to even be able to do that. So I look forward into humanity becoming human again.
That sounds great. Okay, we have about 15 minutes. Sasha wants to say something.
Well, I would just say that one way to move toward humanity is to stop the artificial persons we call corporations, which had the functions of governance farmed out to them, and then they have the legal right as a private corporation whose leaders aren't responsible for the crimes they commit because it's the corporation and they have the right to keep things secret. And so I've heard some pretty convincing arguments on NPR that stopping corporations, abolishing this idea that you can escape responsibility for your crimes and restitution for those whom you've harmed by hiding behind a corporation would be a great step. I used to say that Andy Bishago has got a program that can really help in that direction.
I agree. Okay. All right. So anyway, we're covering a lot of ground, and we only have about 10 minutes left. So this is the round where everybody kind of summarizes what they got from the show, their perspective, things they want to tell our listeners. And I don't know, I think we missed somebody last round, but let's go back to Karen. Closing statements. Karen, are you there?
Oh yeah, I just didn't get to the mute button quick enough. Okay, yeah, you know, I've had a couple. You know, I try to, you know, when I think of a concept, I try to come up with phrases that help people kind of lock on to what's going on here. And I thought of two of them, and for the fit what we're talking about today. One is the experiencer's path. I think that I see the experiencer's path is the one that gets humanity over the goal line. I suppose it's another simile, but yeah, gets us over the goal line, gets the job done. Because it's, you know, it's, you know, okay, proof this, proof now. I even read an article this week by a guy here in New Mexico who says, you followed these sale, there's no more to talk about. He's like, nothing to see here, folks, blah, you know, whatever. And I'm like, are you kidding me? That might be the case if you're talking to people who are just so set on hardcore proof that keeps disappearing. You know, they're bored. Okay, you're bored. Now, why don't you go talk to some experiencers and really learn something? You know, I think if you're not looking at what is going on with experiencers, including lots of people listening right now, you're kind of missing the boat. And then the other one is when I moved to New Mexico, I found out they built this spaceport. It was built by Sir Richard Branson from the Virgin, I have a Virgin mobile phone, Virgin company. And, you know, this was done a couple of years ago, and it's just kind of sitting there with, you know, it's built, it's really cool, but there's, you know, it's a spaceport, it really is there's no spaceships landing there. I guess he had high hopes. But the idea was he was going to, you know, have like a shuttle type thing and take, you know, there's a billionaire that wants to take millionaires to space. You know, they pay $1 million, they get a ticket, they go up in space, they experience weightlessness, and that's supposed to, and maybe that samadhi thing that Edgar Mitchell always talks about where you really see the Earth, and there's no lines, you know, where on the globe, you know, where the countries are. You know, have some experience. And the thing was in it was done, and it just didn't go anywhere. Then they have built their craft, but it crashed, and there you go. I think this is my other phrase: ticket to space. What's the ticket to space? I mean, I know we have a breakaway civilization, but they don't seem to be able to break away enough because they're requiring billions of dollars from those of us on the ground. So, you know, we're still paying for them to be up there, so they're not independent. What's the ticket to space? The ticket to space for us to be a truly spacefaring planet is we provide for everybody on the planet. You're not a mature country. You're not a mature planet if children starve in the street and people are bought and sold and people are homeless and people don't have enough food. That is not a mature, ready for space country. Who would want you out there? If I'm an ET and I'm looking down at the Earth, it's like, please keep those people on their planet till they figure out their stuff. You know what I mean? So that's the other thing. The ticket to space is to take care of everyone in your civilization adequately. Not to have one guy have billions of dollars and some people have nothing. That's not how it works. So, Mr. Branson, your ships are going to keep crashing and you're going to keep having, you know, technical problems until you, sir, and the rest of you guys in your club realize that the rest of it, you know, right now we got 84, well, no, we're down to 62 people owning half the world's wealth, and one of them is the Queen, by the way. That ratio is crazy. That half of what they have belongs to the rest of us, as far as I'm concerned. So I'm radical, you know. So that's my statement. There you go.
But I agree. Okay. Next is Ken.
Yes. Well, main thing I'd like to see is that people that really want to know for sure and be able to see the real things, they could go to kenjohnstonmedia.com, and then you have an opportunity to kind of join the team that's getting in there and actually looking at what I've had for 45 years. And it's time that everyone gets in and we all work together. It's that, as Karen mentioned earlier, it's that 100 monkey, and I think we're about ready to dump about 100 million monkeys into doing the research and making it where it can't be kept secret. In fact, it is not secret anymore. It just needs to keep making progress in perhaps a viral way till it's all over the world more than it already is. But I mean, particularly in America and Canada and Great Britain. I love it down in the South. People in Brazil or in South America are just wild with information on what we're doing and what's going on down there. The people in Asia and even Russia, they've all way ahead of what the public in those countries have. I was a little shocked, though, with our Korean guy, because he was telling in Korea there's only one person that really believes in UFOs, and he said that he was it. So, you know, that's me. So, but I disagree with him there because I've got other Korean friends, and there are just as many people there that are willing to look at evidence. The problem is
right
in these closed societies, if they can't, they don't have access to the information to be able to do the research, to be able to make an intelligent decision about is it real or is it not. And that's where I think what I have saved and what we've just now, the A-Team has put out to the world is now everyone has access to the information to be able to take a look and see, have we been lied to? Is it real? Is it really out there? What's the next step? Where are we going from here? And I like what SpaceX is doing. They've got the price down, Karen. They got the price down now to only $250,000 to get yourself a ticket to go to Mars. And by the way, just because they said that I'm too old, I had a lot more fun in Roswell telling people that were saying, well, you know, how come you didn't get to go on that? And I explained finally. They said I was too old, but I'm dyslexic, and I'm only 37, so I've still got that ticket. I'm ready to go.
That's great. Sasha, you had something to add?
Oh, no, I just had my final statements.
Okay, well, let's have Bret talk. Bret, are you ready to talk?
Yes, I'm here. I would just like to tell your listeners, you know, that the key to all of this is perception. And you know, as great as the evidence is in space, you know, the pictures that we have from space that were doctored, you know, and all of that is wonderful evidence, and that points us in the direction that there is life out there. I've literally seen bases on the moon. I've literally seen giant megaliths on Mars's moon, Phobos. You know, I've literally seen some of these things in space images. Now, the thing about these space images is that they were done at a time when there was no airbrushing. There wasn't anything like that, you know. And the only ones that I really look at and take or consider them like actual evidence is the older space images from Viking and Lunar Orbiter and some of the non-doctored Apollo images from Ken. And those are great evidences. We can just look at around our planet and see how diverse life is on Earth. We have every race represented right here on Earth, whether it's bugs or animals, or we have a representation of all of the genetics that came from space. And it's like a giant garden, you know. It's really fascinating. And that is the key thing, is perception, you know, to look at who we are, and to have a little bit of introspection on some of these things that are deep inside of us that we haven't been told, because facts are usually lies. And I can say that with some clarity, that facts are not coming from your own human experience. If you want the truth and you want that actual truth, it's inside you.
I agree. Sasha.
Yeah, I would like to say, you know, the dominant ethos, the matrix that we live under, was given us by the Anunnaki, who are people that came from Sirius C, settled on Nibiru. These were the royals, and they have and they had a thermonuclear war, and basically they came out with a military dictatorship and a king, and they basically have perpetrated a ideology of racism, that some people with certain genes are better and their lives are more important than others, but all lives matter. Every life has its own light to shine, and we don't need any monarchy, and we don't need any dictatorship. We just need to honor all life.
I agree. So, this has been a fascinating show, and I really appreciate everybody coming on today. What websites would you like to promote before we end here? Karen, would you like to be the spokesperson to tell people how they can find out more about you and Ken and Bret and your work?
They can contact me directly, Karen, C as in Cat Patrick at gmail.com. Of course, I'm on with you on AquarianRadio.com. We have a lot of fun with those shows and the people we talk to. Let's see. I think people can, if they want to check out what happened at Roswell, just go on to look at Google Roswell UFO Festival, and you'll see lots of pictures that they put up. At the end of the whole thing, the director said they'd had something like a 17% increase. If they keep going like that, we'll have the whole entire town, pretty much, the Roswell Festival in a few years. I hope that happens. Becomes like, you know, Burning Man or something like that. But, yeah, just check those out. And also on Facebook, the Earth Anomaly Research Society, Lunar Anomaly Research Society. Bret and I are both admins. We're about ready. I really want people to go to the Earth Anomaly Research Society. We're so close to becoming 5,000 members. I need some more people to join. But we talk about all kinds of things: UFOs, crop circles, sinkholes, volcanoes, everything. And it's a lot of fun. People just talking about all the weird stuff on our planet. So there you go. That's for me.
Okay. Well, I want to thank everybody for coming to our show. Our major show where we keep all these archives of the radio presentations that we're doing is AquarianRadio.com. And, of course, what we're tying in on these shows is the Anunnaki experience throughout time, from ancient times to modern times to the moon and Mars and beyond. And the major website for that is EnkiSpeaks.com. And thank you very much, everybody, for joining us today. Karen, Ken, Bret, Sasha, Janet, listeners. Love and blessings.
Aloha.
Aloha.